Morning, everyone. We are just waiting for a few minutes to give all the audience the opportunity to take part in this webinar. We will start in a few minutes. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of minutes of patience, just to give the time to participants to join the webinar. We will start in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this new appointment of the webinar series Foresight Dialogues. We will talk today about public engagement for climate resilient society with Annette Klinkert, Executive Director of the European Science Engagement Association. Good morning, Annette, and welcome. And good morning, Annette.
Good morning.
And with Eulàlia Baulenas from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. Good morning, Eulàlia, and thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
I am Mauro Buonocore. I am the head of the communication and outreach office at the Euro-Mediterranean Center on climate change. CMCC is a research center that develops international research on climate sciences, but as we know that climate has impacts on societies and any sector of the society, we are also, as CMCC, as a community of scientists, we are also committed to find the way and tools that make the scientific knowledge comprehensible and usable for citizens, stakeholders, policymakers, and so on. That's why we organize this series of events, Foresight Dialogues, and this appointment is also in collaboration with the project AGORA. Our webinar series is named after Foresight, the CMCC digital magazines, where you can find in-depth interviews, experts, and podcasts related to the interaction between the climate sciences and the impact of climate sciences of our societies globally and locally. It is also in collaboration with the Climate Change Communication Award Rebecca Balestra. That is a collection of the best initiatives on climate communication and around the world. So visit the cmccaward.eu website to join the network of the experts on climate communication all around the world. Before we start talking about this webinar, let me talk to you about two forthcoming events of the series of Foresight Dialogues. The first one is on November 15. It is both in Rome and also in webinars, so you can join in person or online. It will be a webinar dedicated to the topic of climate disinformation. We will have the opportunity to talk with John Cook, who is the founder of Skeptical Science, the renowned website and science community on disinformation and debunking, and also with other experts such as Paola Mercogliano, who is the coordinator of the AGORA project, Antonello Pasini, Monia Zalini from the Observatory on Media of Pavia, and experts from the Rome municipality, such as Eduardo Zanchini, and from WWF, such as Maria Grazia Midulla. The day after, we will be in Florence and online again at the Earth Technology Expo in Florence with an event where we will meet some international initiatives on climate communication. We will be there with Skeptical Science again, with John Cook, but also with the Climate Central, the US-based initiatives on data, on climate data and journalism resources. And also with Stefano Boeri Architects Studio, the European Digital Media Observatory, Climate Narrative Project by Jeff Bridges, and the Cooling Solutions and Bello Mondo, the podcast that talks about climate and communication. So now let's start our webinar on public engagement and climate resilient societies. It is organized together with the AGORA project. AGORA project is an horizon project that supports the overall objectives of the EU mission on adaptation. And AGORA is made of several initiatives that will gather in some pillars, which are climate is citizen and public engagement on climate, the dialogues between science community and decision-making community, and also climate disinformation. So the project is addressed to multiple audiences and will organize a series of initiatives and events to create and enhance the dialogues between the science, the policymakers, and the society, the citizens at all. It will provide a digital agora, a digital environment where all the materials and these interactions will gather, and will also provide a digital book, a digital handbook as a resource to use and to make available and to use all these materials. A quick logistical information for the audience. You can join the discussion through the Q&A window that you find in the menu of Zoom. So if you have questions for our speakers or comments, please dial them in the window that you see in the Zoom interface. Final remarks, you can find CMCC on social media and also on the YouTube. The webinar will be archived and made available on our YouTube channel. Now it's time to start concretely with the webinar, and I'm happy to leave the floor to Annette Klinkert for her speech on public engagement. Annette, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mauro. I will share my screen with you if you allow me to. So I hope you can see my slide now. So thank you very much for inviting me to these precious Foresight Dialogues. It's indeed an honor to speak to this international community about a topic that is not just at our heart as being the European Science Engagement Association, but which is a topic, as you will see in my talk, which is gaining a momentum in these times in which we all face so many challenges related not just to climate change, but to the peace of our shared planet. It's related to the way we live together, to the way we tackle all these very complex challenges together. And as you will see, there is new funding, there are new models and new recommendations related to public engagement. I will start by introducing who we are, because you may not know me and the organization. EUSEA is a pan-European network of public engagement professionals in the fields of research, innovation, and education. What we do is to encourage a community of experts and organizations to involve citizens and other stakeholders in the whole life cycle of knowledge creation. So not just encourage the sharing of knowledge at the end of the research process, but to find different ways of conducting a life cycle of knowledge creation and integrating engagement into this cycle. These are some of the engagement models conducted by our members. So we have science festivals, science parliaments, researchers' nights, but increasingly formats such as maker fairs, hackathons, public debates, living labs, they all enter the scene. So the field of engagement goes way beyond a science festival or way beyond a small dialogue, and is really reaching out to involving multiple audiences in different venues. We have about 122 members from different fields. So I'm sorry. So what does, no, this goes too fast. What does engagement mean to us now in our field? The definition that we use, there are multiple out there, but the definition that we use is public engagement presented as a dialogue or participation model in which multiple publics and researchers or scientists both benefit from listening to and learning from one another, referred to as mutual learning. So this mutual learning distinguishes science communication from public engagement, because the public engagement model, as many of you will know, is based on the assumption that both publics, and we use the plural here, not just the public, but multiple publics and scientists, have expertise, valuable perspectives, and knowledge to contribute to the development of science and its application in society. And you see in this graph how we distinguish between one-way communication and actually engaging in a dialogue in which people work together. So the difference between communication is that on the one hand, we have target groups, which we try to address and tackle very specifically. And having a target group, even in the language, means that we are defining a certain goal, we are sending, and we try to go with our information right at the heart of this target group. In engagement, we focus on partnerships. That's a different way of working. And in order to understand the processes, it's important to really see that while targeting means we have a fixed message, having partnerships for engagement means that we need to identify, analyze, plan, and engage together throughout the process. Now, there are some key principles for co-creation that are relevant for engagement. One is inclusivity, so we need to involve diverse voices and perspectives. Collaboration, we need to foster partnership and teamwork. And then empowerment means for us to encourage active participation and decision-making across the whole spectrum of knowledge generation. Now, why should researchers engage? This is a big question now for the whole community of public engagement, which is often conducted by people outside the actual research process. So why should the research community be more and more involved in this field and also qualified to engage? There is a new definition of excellence out there, which was done by the European Commission in collaboration with multiple stakeholders. And this says that excellence, and they mean scientific excellence today, is about more than groundbreaking discoveries. It includes openness, transparency, and the co-production of knowledge. And these three words, openness, transparency, and the co-production of knowledge, characterize where research and innovation are going. So why are these important? And this is a language directly used by the European Commission. And for all of you who want to foster engagement and want to have support for it, they can always relate to these definitions, which are part of the new funding scenarios. So first of all, engagement contributes to excellence of research. It enlarges the scope of research and innovation and the quality and quantity of the data collected, discussed, and analyzed. It increases the robustness of the outcomes, enables innovative and creative approaches, and which I think is very important for especially everything related to climate change, it leverages the collective intelligence which is out there in innovation ecosystems, which is often excluded from knowledge creation. Then engagement contributes to effectiveness. So it aligns the outcomes with the needs, values, and expectations of society, ensuring greater relevance and uptake. Then, of course, we all know that this may reduce time to market of innovative products and services. And another very important thing when it comes to climate change and resilience, it may trigger behavioral change, which a scientific publication may not do. Then it contributes to trust in science, of course. Engagement increases openness, transparency, and the co-ownership of society. It leads to more inclusive outcomes, which I think also the AGORA project will focus on, and encourages mutual learning between science and different actors of society. What is very important to know these days is that engagement actually opens the doors to funding for all research that is done, at least within Horizon Europe. Societal engagement, and this is not known among all academic institutions yet, is already considered to be part of the excellence criterion under the methodology during proposal evaluation. Co-design, co-creation, and the engagement of citizens and civil society organizations are now mainstreamed across the whole program, which is a really exciting news. So research is being assessed via citizens and end users, co-creating knowledge and innovation with the goal of developing solutions and knowledge that are taken up by society. So this is not a soft skill. This is not something that researchers or innovators should do on the weekend if they have some time beyond research. But this is now an element of research assessment as part of the excellence evaluation. Very important new development in research funding. And we see this from the European Commission, but we also see this dripping down towards national funding schemes and even regional funding schemes who use a similar wording and similar methodologies. Now, for the transformation of our societies, for the transformation towards sustainability, we need more than activities. We need a profound systemic change of our systems. This is also something that's very important to know. So it's not just about promoting science more or sharing information or spreading news. It's about changing the way we do research, changing the way we do innovation in our innovation ecosystem. So how do we do that? We need to support a culture change within our institutions. So the old way of engaging via sharing knowledge only is no longer enough, not only in assessing research, but it's no longer enough to really face and meet these complex challenges that are around us. So a picture that we like to use to show what is needed in this culture change is that academic institutions, but also other innovators, other institutions, could be administrations, it could be other well-established institutions, used to work as a fortress, working in a safe space behind walls, maybe sometimes sending something outside these little windows. But what we need today is more harbors. We need to train our researchers and our innovators to enter different boats, to know where to sail, to find the direction, in order to know where the boat should take in order to meet other people. We also need to be more inviting, like a harbor. So it's no longer about protecting our knowledge against others, but it's about sharing as much as possible and inviting others in, like a harbor, to trade, to share knowledge and to sail away with new goods and with new ideas and to go to new directions. There may still be a bit of this fortress idea to be safe in times of trouble, but if we hide behind the walls in these times, there will be no new understanding. But you can see it needs new skills, it needs new technologies and new trainings for innovators of all kinds. So some practical tips for engagers, no matter where you are from. These are some scenes from the UC conferences, and you can see how different our conferences are from other areas that you may have seen in the world of engagement or communication. So a quote that explains why we see the relevant is that transformation is not a future event, it's a present activity. So we shouldn't talk about transformation as if it was something that we are not affected by, but as something that we practice in our everyday life and work. So actually, a good engagement is all about finding the relevance. It's about moving away from what you want to say to deeply understanding what others are interested in and finding the relevance in the middle of these two bubbles. That's actually the essence of motivating others to join an engagement process. Then we need to learn to listen. So before we start communicating, before we start preaching to people about what we think is relevant, we should ask people about their fears, attitudes, and values, and be very serious about this. And even ask people who may not be part of our bubble, who may have different opinions, who may be in conflict. So just involve them, try to understand what is driving them to really be able to respond in a good way to this diverse community that is around us. Then we need to redefine the notion of experts. When we engage, we shouldn't assume that it's only about researchers as professionals and citizens as a lay group that we need to somehow involve. I think this is a big challenge that we see in projects that are undergoing this way. we need to see experts in all different areas of life, in economy and administration, civil society, even among citizens. They may have something to say that we will benefit from. So let's get away from the dark suit approach to only the governance, only the established leaderships, or only the researchers have something to say. Maybe the wisdom is somewhere else, and we need to find out where it is. Then it's important that engagement should be conducted throughout the process of research, opening up science to societal impulses again and again, at the beginning, in between the research, and in the end. So to not just start engaging when we already know what we want to say, but to start engaging even when we are designing our research question, when we are challenging what we are doing, and to involve different stakeholders in between. Then it's important, of course, to leave the lab, the library, or the comfort zone and to go where the people are. So if we want to engage, be there where they already meet. It could even be a digital sphere. If the people we want to involve are there, then we need to go to the digital sphere as well. But if they are in a park, if they are in a museum, in a different space, we simply need to leave our established spaces to actually open up our minds to other environments as well. We should try out new models. There's so many different new ideas to involve audiences, from Lego serious play, which we use a lot, to game storming models, to other ways of involving multiple audiences, ranging from citizens to highly established economy stakeholders or policymakers. All of these respond really well to new ways of engaging. If we only use the traditional models of inviting them to a lecture hall or a university, inviting them to raise their arms to pose a question, this is not inviting to people who are not familiar with these kinds of environments and who may need other tools, other settings to work and engage with. We may need to work more with artists, with creative people, so that scientific topics show their inspiration and open up their ways of explaining what they want to say and engaging others, opening it up to others with new insights. And artists can be really, really good to help us design new formats. You can see workshops here which go through urban environments using creative tools. So the way we engage is also very important, and just as important to reflect upon the way than about what we actually want to transport. When we think about the way, it's also important to find partners which offer these interesting venues. So it could be nice to collaborate with museums, churches, shops, parks, or zoos, so the environments in which people already are. Work with the experts who often have a profound engagement expertise themselves, and just collaborate with them in bringing our messages across. Then, of course, you all know, if you join these dialogues, that it's about thinking globally, but acting locally. So we often have a lot of experience in linking what we want to say to these large sustainable development goals, but it's just as important to find local partners, local venues, local topics to which we can connect to make our process of engagement more practical, more process-oriented, and more human-driven, because there are always people in your direct environment with whom you can engage. In order to do so, it's good to connect the goals of engagement to the goals of your city or region. There are often smart specialization goals in your areas. And if you connect what you want to do, what you want to raise awareness of with these smart goals, then you will have a shared goal with policymakers, economy, administration. And it's much easier to found these alliances and to create an innovation ecosystem in which you all work together, instead of developing projects, which often happens in the citizen science environment, that projects are happening outside of existing strategies, and people are surprised that they are not taken up in the end by administration or policymaking. But this will be solved if you, when you start designing your process, you align with partners who work in a similar direction, and you take up their expertise to shape out your project in a way that it can be integrated in running processes. So a few ideas about how climate change can be addressed in these engagement formats. You could have town hall meetings, open forums where community members come together to discuss climate change related issues. You can have community resilience fairs, or a Plantiville was an idea that was developed by young people in one of our makeathons. So fairs, meetings, where local organizations, government agency, businesses showcase their products, services, or initiatives. You can encourage local climate action plans, of course, together with your local stakeholders, in which you involve citizens and others in the development of action plans, ensuring that their ideas are integrated into policies. And it's better to do this with the policymakers and administration, and not to kind of drive them and push them to show that they are not reacting, but make them your partners and do it together. You can involve young people by conducting makeathons or hackathons on climate change, engaging them in climate resilience projects and education formats. What you can do also is create community gardens or green spaces in which you promote sustainability and resilience directly in your urban environments. Or you could create citizen science initiatives encouraging citizens to participate in data collection, monitoring, or research-related data gathering related to climate impacts. So we have a platform gathered in which you can find inspirations and practical examples that may inspire you in climate actions. The public engagement platform that we have developed brings together almost 80 dialogue formats and activities related to science engagement. And if you look at our website, you can find them with videos, with examples about target groups, with tips and tricks on how to conduct them. And you will also find on our website, on this platform, toolkits and good reads that bring together the best of European projects, the best recommendations that we found. And this may be something that may inspire you beyond this webinar to have a look into the field of engagement and how to put it into practice. So you are all welcome to join us and get on board of our network if you want to form teams together with other engagers. This is something that cannot be done in one country only. This needs engagement also across borders. And we, as the European Science Engagement Association, are really happy to invite you to the network, join our conferences, look at the platform, and just be in touch. If you want to develop an idea, you will find a good community to share practices with. So this was my input. I'm very much looking forward to all your questions, and I'm happy to stay in touch with all of you if you want to engage around climate change or other topics. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you for your presentation, which is full of tips and food for thought, I think. And there are a couple of points that I found very, very interesting. I mean, that the public engagement, especially when we talk about climate, always starts from science. And it is a challenge for institutions that you already explained, that they need a cultural challenge, a cultural change. And there is also a challenge for scientists, because, you know, when talking to people, climate science knowledge is about numbers, is about figures, is about telling us the level of how the temperature is changing, how the amount of precipitation is changing, and the impact that these things are going, these indicators are going to have on the society. But it is very important, for example, you mentioned the involvement of arts and artists in these dialogues, and it is really I mean, there is a way to communicate the impact of science on society, or scientific knowledge on societies, not only about numbers, but also through emotions, through an emotional dimension that can help to bring people very close to the problem and very close to the topic, and that they are called to discuss with scientists and with decision maker. So we will collect the questions and at the end of the webinar, after the presentation that Eulàlia Baulenas from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center will give us about AGORA and about how citizen engagement is relevant in the project. Just let me remind that I see among the list of participants that there are a couple of hands raised, but we cannot give you the microphone, so please dial your questions and your comment in the window dedicated to question and answer. So thank you very much, and now Eulàlia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mauro, and thank you, Annette, for a very inspiring talk. I'm very happy that science is moving towards this new way of doing things. So let me present. I trust everyone can see the slide. So today, my name is Eulàlia Baulenas, and I'm from the Knowledge Integration team of the System Services Group in the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. And I think I was happy to hear about that. We have to change the way of doing science, because I think our team kind of is the proof that some things are changing, because we are related to a lot of climate change research, and our team especially has a lot of disciplines represented, which try to bridge this gap between science, policy, and society. And I'm here to present an overview of the AGORA project, and specifically the first insights that we are gaining from about citizen and stakeholder engagement for climate change adaptation specifically. So these are the table of contents, but I would move very quickly because I think I will be able to present you better later with another figure. So as Mauro early presented, AGORA stands for a gathering place to co-design and co-create adaptation, and is a project aimed at supporting the mission of adaptation to climate change by involving communities and regions. And we have several key aspects which are part of the puzzle. And the main one is the digital AGORA, which is this gathering place that we will be creating throughout the project, and which will gather all the content that we will have on engagement methodologies, on climate change misinformation, and several other aspects that we are touching. And this is part also of the Digital Academy. And here we will invite all the range of stakeholders, citizens, to have material that they would like to incorporate in their daily practices. So as I was saying, this is a better table of content, because today's focus of this presentation is everything about public deliberation and citizen and stakeholder engagement. And AGORA is addressing it from several points of view. So not only about the key principles, which I think Annette Klinkert did a marvelous job on presenting them, but also on the barriers and constraints that we have for effective engagement and co-production processes. What methodologies seem to work or not for a more effective engagement and having outcomes such as empowerment and inclusivity. Also, we are generating an evaluation framework for these types of initiatives. And then we have pilot projects where we put everything in practice of what we are learning from the theory, from interviews, and from engaging with other experts. And also understanding expertise in this wide form that Annette was mentioning. So I will cover all these points. And I will start from the key principles where we see citizen and stakeholder engagement coming from. And this is very aligned to the previous presentation, which is about public deliberation as a form of deliberative democracy. So we have different forms of democracy coexisting at the same time, and we believe that the citizen and the stakeholder engagement represent very well the values of deliberative democracy. And as part of that, discourse here takes a big role, and public deliberation per se is this joint discussion of several aspects and reaching maybe not only possible solutions, but at least the exchange of ideas among different stakeholders and actors, and with citizens as central point. So this is the key principles in which AGORA is inspired. And these are the questions that we would like to address throughout the project, which is what is expected from engagement. So why we decide to engage the public, what enables it to have an impact, and what hinders this impact, as well as where can we intervene, we as researchers or participants of this type of processes. So I will start by the end, which is the evaluation framework and the first initial insights that are coming from Delphi methodology and a literature review. So what is expected from engagement? Why we decide to engage the public? And the first one is that contextual adaptation knowledge is to achieve contextual adaptation knowledge and action that aligns with the local needs, the expectations and values. And here, different concepts of vulnerability are key to take into account, especially on climate change adaptation. So there is also the fact that citizens and other stakeholders have an equal opportunity to participate in the adaptation decision-making process of this local context. The third impact or expectation that we see is that citizens, decision makers, researchers, and other stakeholders learn and co-produce knowledge. So this mutual learning that Annette Klinkert was emphasizing very importantly as the key principle. And finally, also that citizens, decision makers, researchers, and other stakeholders will develop or improve their partnerships so that the networks keep getting more fostered throughout this way of collaborating together. But what are the potential barriers and also partial solutions that we are seeing emerging from different aspects? So now what you see on the screen is part of the CEI's research. And they did a World Café, so an engagement practice that we started with to discuss these potential barriers and the potential solutions that the stakeholders or the participants of the World Café were seeing. And participants took different roles, municipalities, citizens, companies, and the ideas that emerged that the potential barriers to engagement are several, and one of which is lack of support from government and key identified stakeholders, lack of communication between stakeholders and participants, lack of dissemination and awareness, limited availability of participants, and that the project or the concern of interest is actually not relevant for the stakeholders involved. And the solutions that participants were seeing is the building relationships and trust, which takes a long time. It's very important because then it can ease some of these barriers. Similarly, early engagement and sustained throughout the process, as well ensuring format representation, which is something we will come back at the end of the presentation. The reduction of existing silos and positive stories as self-motivation appears to be something that works very well to reduce these barriers when the concerns that the process is addressing do not match the stakeholders' needs. Also, we are conducting a literature review on enablers and barriers, but specifically for co-production processes, which is a specific form of engagement. And the literature review gave over 600 drivers. And we see the categories on the screen on where were the drivers. So the literature apparently focused more on enablers than barriers. And also it's more internal to the process rather than external drivers that either impact, enable, or hinder effective engagement processes. And the different categories, specifically the one of relational and interpersonal, so which comes here with aspects of trust, for instance, as well as values and motivational were the main categories that are here, as well as institutional, which are part of the barriers that we saw in the previous slide, and sociocultural aspects as the main categories that were emerging from the barriers. So as scientists, as any person interested in conducting engagement, where can we intervene? And here's where the assessment of engagement methodologies comes in. And there are different aspects that we are seeing emerging from the literature, and also some interviews and surveys that we will conduct with practitioners. And which is to take very seriously the context and purpose of the engagement process, and also the phases of the engagement, the pre-engagement, the process itself, the post-engagement, and the evaluation. And here, pay attention to the different aspects. So what you see on the screen are the different things that are emerging, which is very aligned to actually what Annette was mentioning, to see every one participant being the facilitators, organizers, advisors, and the citizens or the stakeholders themselves at the same level. And this is necessary because we always think about providing capacity building for the citizens or the stakeholders, but actually organizers, facilitators, advisors need as well to have this common understanding in order to level up the field. And also in the terms of that all types of knowledge matter and are valid. So this is important that to create this consciousness that there is co-ownership of the issue that the engagement process is addressing. And this comes in with facilitating empowerment, and for empowerment it requires enabling effective participation. And these aspects can come with the sampling methods that are implemented in order to get your target group, but also the communication strategies, how are they tailored by different target groups, to have trusted intermediaries between these different stakeholders, citizens, and the part of the organization of the engagement processes to be part in. And finally, also the type of engagement format that are fit for purpose. That there was a list shared by Annette previously, and there are a million ways of doing engagement. I think we all can be creative in trying to have the one that actually fit the context and the purpose of the climate change adaptation solution type that we are planning to do through participatory methodologies. And in the base of everything, there is the concept of co-decision. Co-decisions in everything, actually, not only the issue of concern, the concepts of vulnerability on the table, the pondered decisions and the possible solutions, as well as the evaluation criteria, but also in all these aspects. Maybe citizens can also take part in what type of communication strategies work better for their communities, for which they feel recommended. Also the engagement methods that they would prefer, so that everyone have a saying in all the decisions that are taking part. And I think this is what we see, that we have kind of power on intervening in the ways that the impact that we were mentioning in the beginning are better reached. And in AGORA, what we are doing is trying to implement in practice everything that we are learning about citizen and stakeholder engagement from these different points of views with 4 pilot studies, which are in Germany, Sweden, Spain, and Italy. And now in this month of November, we are having the first inception workshops that we call it, to discuss actually to identify the vulnerabilities that there are, these drivers and gaps in relation to the local adaptive capacity. And it is doing so with this inception work through the assessment of local susceptibilities to the expected climate hazards. So we are trying to align the adaptation priorities and with the requirements of the needs of the local communities. And I think this concludes well our presentation. So you are very welcome to the AGORA community to join us through the different forms that we have to reach out to the community, and especially when we have the digital AGORA ready, where we'll have all the material, and it's going to be an interactive platform where everyone can collaborate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eulàlia. Thank you for your presentation. Yes, I see that there are some questions in the chat. First of all, I would like to reply to a comment by Carlo Schibel, who says that it's a pity that the chat is deactivated. Yes, I know, but it is not easy to manage a chat in a webinar with hundreds of participants. And one thing that we have seen in the presentations of our speakers is that public engagement is very, very important and relevant, and also deserves a lot of preparation and organization, and methodologies that are specific to different kind of context and audience. So it is not about how to say, to open a discussion. It's also about to find the right and correct, the more effective methodologies in order to consider the context and also the aim of any initiative. But I would like to ask, to bring to our speakers a question from Umberto Lavorata, who says, what strategies or initiatives do you recommend for narrowing the participation gap between highly engaged citizens and those who are less involved in public activities or decision-making processes, especially in rural areas where access to resource and information may be limited? Annette, do you have an answer to this question?
Yes, I do, because we do work a lot with regional approaches, which involves rural areas as well. When we do engagement formats, we make a very clear analysis of who is necessary for the discussion. So we don't just say, here is science, and all citizens are just as relevant and as many as possible, no matter where they come from. But we use the quadruple helix, which you may have heard of, to distinguish different actors that may be needed for an innovation process. So it's science, it could be public administration, civil society, and economy. We look at these 4 areas. Then we define who is the most relevant. Maybe it's all 4 of them. Then all 4 areas should be represented in the dialogues, in the participation. If it's just a few of them, we need to analyze very closely. And the more rural you get, the more away from science you get, the more evaluation or the more understanding you need of this target group, and that's crucial, of their interests and their needs. And academics often tend to have a merely center-oriented approach. We know something, we want something, they should change, they should learn. And it's about understanding, why should these people who are busy, no matter whether they are in the family or a farmer or someone working in a retirement home, why these people should give their valuable lifetime to your research project, and really understand what is their benefit if you invite them. And then look at the materials you give to them. Are they using a language that they understand? Are they asking them to read 10 pages before they can even join? So are you taking them seriously in their everyday environment? And whether you need, I like this term that you used, Eulàlia, the trusted intermediaries. This is what we use often. The harder an audience is to reach, the more you need to find out, who do they trust? Maybe they don't trust you as a young researcher, but maybe they trust other people. So work with the other people first to try to really understand your community, and then find a good way and a good venue also, and a good time where you can meet. Don't tell them, come to my university, but find a good timing when they don't have to take care of families. So very practical things. And make sure that these famous, we call them the groups of retired teachers who always join. Make sure that they may not join, but other selected people join. So maybe the group must be smaller, but more targeted, because you then really find the people. But I think, Eulàlia, you have really good experiences there as well.
Eulàlia, do you want to add something?
I think that was a great answer. So I'm happy to go through the other, looking at the time, I'm happy to go through the other questions.
Okay, and there is a specific question for you, if I can find it. Oh, you already answered. Okay, you already answered to the, so you can find, I'm talking to the audience, you can find the reply to the answer of Eulàlia on hints to improve effectiveness of surveys and questionnaires in the chat. While there is a question about the freedom to use climate data and tools and contents. Robbie Morrison writes that, having worked on climate change outreach since 1990, the biggest barrier I face is copyright law, including paywalled articles, legally encumbered data sets, closed source software development. Is open licensing on your various radars, I suppose? So the open licensing, for what concerns CMCC, anything that we provide is open, is available for anybody. The point is that you need a scientist to manage climate data, because again, you can have numbers related to climate scenarios and how climate indicators are expected to change in the future. But the way that these numbers can impact the society is something that should be, I think, addressed with the help and the contribution, the collaboration with the climate scientist. Annette, Eulàlia, do you have any comments on this point?
No.
Okay. Next question is from Alexandra Castro. Do you feel that we should have communication professionals leading the engagement activities, or can it work well with our regular teams? Meaning regular teams, I suppose, scientists, I suppose. Yes, Annette, please.
There is a yes and no to this. I think if we understand that communication and engagement is about maximizing the impact of research, then it should be clear that every single member of a research project should be highly aware of which impact you want to make. It could be a scientific impact, sociocultural impact, economic impact. The impact must be clear for everyone. And then a communication professional can support you to put it into practice. But I would say, if you see how important engagement is in the assessment of research excellence, that it's about time to get familiar, no matter where you work, but for each and every researcher, it's time to know how to engage, to know the methodologies, and to have a try at least to communicate. And it's no longer the time to delegate this to someone like EUSEA or other partners. Just do the job for us. So you do the dissemination part, you do the engagement, and we do the real science. Because in a good research project, the real science is not possible without an engagement policy. So it's really a team that you need to form. But of course, you can ask for additional money for engagement, and you should ask for a lot of money for engagement in a research project. And then you can hire people with an expertise in this field. But I would not make it something that you can outsource out of your research, because these times are really changing, and it should be part of the whole research qualification, I would say.
Yes, thank you. And let me add, if I can, Eulàlia, before I leave the microphone to you, that it is not, again, it is engagement is a matter of collaboration and the integration of different expertise in science, in communication, in policy making, and in being able to feel the impact that climate is going to have at social level, at the economical level, and at the physical level, and what solutions. But it is not about communication. Engagement, I mean, is not only about communication, it's something different, which is the ability to enhance the discussion, to enhance the dialogue among different actors. So to make people able, from their different point of views, their different needs and the different expertise, to bring on the table their contribution, which are all valuable for the good outcome of the process. Eulàlia, please.
I just would like to adapt to that. I'm aligned to what you're saying, but I think it's important also to see that maybe there are some disciplines that need to be involved in engagement, that some social sciences like communication sciences, sociology, anthropology, so that there is an eye that is being trained through the practice of studying society, that I think it's also important to take into account in engagement, specifically for climate change adaptation. So partially that, so it's not about only the physical aspects of climate change, but all the social aspects that come together with it. So I also am very fan of the think of champion scientists that take part in engagement, supporting the part of engagement process now. So not only science to be involved, but lay knowledge also to be as seen equally valid to the process. So in these terms, I agree with the answers that were given here.
Okay, and the last questions are two, but are quite similar, because they are about how would you engage specific communities, for example, farmers, health, and etc. So how to target or engage different communities? Annette, do you have?
I think they should definitely be targeted. This relates to what I meant with redefine the notion of experts. So don't just work with the citizens, but if you designed your impact strategy, you should say the impact on, for example, farmers could be exactly in this field, and maybe even design this together with them. So you can again go via the multiplier. So I'm not a friend of targeting individuals right away, because they may have a very specific interest, which may even be not related to what you want to do. So go via their representation people and work with them, have a cup of coffee with them, simply saying, I really would like to work with them, be modest and say, I don't understand the way they work, I don't understand the needs, and where can we meet? Then again, meet them where they normally meet. Maybe look at where farmers are normally meeting, or medical people, or other people you want to address, all elderly. So have a look where they already meet. Have a look at the formats they use. Maybe they already have a series of meeting places where you can align, or maybe they have a social media group. A lot of people are joining groups which you can then join via using the same hashtag, meeting them on LinkedIn. So create trust would be my first recommendation, and understand them and learn from them. They will tell you what is the best way to meet them. But before you do that, you just, create trust with individuals, with multipliers, and then work from there.
Thank you. And Eulàlia, you are working in the framework of the AGORA project to mapping the citizen engagement best practices that are going on in Europe. Do you have something to say about that?
Yes, so we will be reaching out to them in case they would like also to to different initiatives that are taking part in Europe, whether they want to give their also best practices on the methodologies to apply. And what I wanted to say, I think here brokerage roles are very important also, that sometimes you find a stakeholder that is very engaged in the community, being these farmers or these trusted intermediaries actually that already came up a couple of times, that then you can reach the network more easily than if you try to introduce yourself to a community that they don't know you. So maybe to finding these key stakeholders that are having this type of straight communication with a specific community that you are interested in. And this is something that we expect to see also with the initiatives that we will be starting.
Okay, and that will be mapped on the digital Agora that will be available soon. So it is 1 o'clock. I think that we can close this webinar, and let me sincerely thank Annette Klinkert, Executive Director at EUSEA, and Eulàlia Baulenas from Barcelona Supercomputing Center. And I also thanks all the audience. I invite you all to take part in the next Foresight Dialogues. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. It was an honor.
Thank you for joining. Bye.